Christopher Reeve had made his decision. He was going to ask his wife to disconnect his ventilator. Superman, the man who'd inspired millions, wanted to die. For 6 weeks, he'd laid in that hospital bed, paralyzed from the neck down, unable to feel anything, unable to move. And then his door opened. A man in a white coat with a thick Russian accent walked in and said, "Mr. Reeve, I am here to perform your rectal examination. Please prepare yourself." Reeve stared at him. Then he recognized the eyes behind those fake glasses. It was Robin Williams. And for the first time in 6 weeks, Christopher Reeve laughed. What happened in those next 10 minutes, and the question Reeve asked afterward, changed everything. May 27th, 1995, Culpeper, Virginia. Christopher Reeve, 42 years old, Superman himself, fell from a horse during an equestrian competition. His hands got tangled in the reins. He couldn't throw himself clear. His head hit the fence. His first and second vertebrae shattered. The sound his neck made when it broke, witnesses said they heard it from across the field. Within seconds, Christopher Reeve went from one of Hollywood's most physical actors to a man who couldn't move a single finger. He was paralyzed from the neck down, unable to breathe without a ventilator, unable to feel his own body. The doctors told his wife, Dana, one simple thing. He might never leave this hospital bed, and if he did, he'd need 24-hour care for the rest of his life. But here's what nobody knew in those first terrible weeks. Christopher Reeve wasn't thinking about recovery. He wasn't thinking about physical therapy or experimental treatments or any of it. He was thinking about dying. He'd whisper to Dana in the middle of the night, his voice barely audible over the hiss of the ventilator. "Maybe we should let me go. Maybe this is too much." Dana would squeeze his hand, the hand he couldn't feel, and beg him not to say that. But Reeve meant it, every word. He'd been Superman. He'd flown across movie screens, saved the world, inspired generations of children, and now he couldn't even scratch his own nose. The irony wasn't just painful, it was suffocating. For 6 weeks, he didn't smile, not once. Visitors would come to his room at the University of Virginia Medical Center, trying to be encouraging, trying to lift his spirits with stories about recovery and hope. And Reeve would just stare at the ceiling, his eyes empty, his spirit broken. What was the point? He couldn't move, he couldn't feel. He'd spent his entire career using his body, training for roles, doing stunts, riding horses, and now that body was a prison. The ventilator breathed for him, nurses fed him, he couldn't even turn his head to look out the window. He was trapped inside himself. His children would visit, and Reeve would force a smile, try to be strong for them. But the moment they left, the mask would drop. Dana would see it in his eyes. Her husband, the strongest man she'd ever known, was giving up. And she didn't know how to stop it. Then, on a humid afternoon in July, his hospital door burst open. A man in a white coat strode in, holding a clipboard, speaking in a thick, exaggerated Russian accent. "Mr. Reeve, good afternoon. I am Dr. Vasily Bulgakov. I am proctologist from Moscow Medical Institute. I have reviewed your charts, and I am very concerned. Very concerned indeed. I am here to perform immediate rectal examination. This is urgent medical procedure. We must begin right away, no delays." Reeve blinked. His mind, foggy from painkillers and depression, tried to process what was happening. Who was this doctor? Why was he talking like Boris from Rocky and Bullwinkle? And why was a proctologist showing up unannounced to examine a paralyzed man? The absurdity of it cut through the fog. And then the man leaned closer, peering at Reeve over his fake horn-rimmed glasses, adjusting his obviously fake mustache. And Reeve saw the eyes, those wild, unmistakable manic eyes. Robin Williams. For the first time in 6 weeks, Christopher Reeve laughed. Not a polite chuckle, not a weak smile. A full, body-shaking, chest-heaving laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere deep. The kind that breaks through walls of despair and medication and hopelessness. His chest heaved against the ventilator. Tears streamed down his face. And Robin, completely committed to the bit, kept going. Yes, this is very serious business, Mr. Reeve. We have received disturbing reports from nursing staff about suspicious activity in lower regions. Very suspicious, rumbling, strange noises, possibly dangerous. As leading expert in Soviet rectal medicine, I must investigate thoroughly. Please prepare yourself mentally for examination. It will be uncomfortable, but necessary. Reeve tried to speak through his laughter. "Robin. Robin, you idiot. Robin! I do not know this Robin. I am Dr. Bulgakov. I have credentials, see?" Robin pulled out what was clearly a children's toy medical badge. "Very official. From Moscow. We take these matters seriously in Soviet Union. Now, about your rectum—" And Reeve laughed harder. For the first time since the accident, for the first time in 6 weeks of darkness and pain and wanting to die, Christopher Reeve was laughing so hard he thought his chest might explode. The nurses outside heard it. Dana heard it from down the hall and came running. She stopped in the doorway and saw her husband, tears streaming down his face, laughing at Robin Williams in a ridiculous costume, doing a ridiculous accent. And she started crying, because that laugh meant her husband was still in there, still fighting, still alive. When Robin finally broke character, he pulled off the fake glasses and mustache, set down the clipboard, and just hugged his friend. He sat on the edge of the hospital bed and held Reeve's hand, the hand Reeve couldn't feel but somehow knew was being held. They didn't say anything for a long moment. They didn't need to. Because what nobody in that hospital room understood, what the nurses and doctors couldn't possibly know, was this. These two men had been brothers for 22 years, and Robin Williams had just done what he'd always done best. He'd reminded Christopher Reeve that life, even broken life, even paralyzed life, could still hold joy. But here's what nobody knew about how this friendship began. 1973, Juilliard School, New York, room 304. The most prestigious performing arts conservatory in America. John Houseman, the legendary teacher and director, ran the advanced program with an iron fist and impossibly high standards. Every year, hundreds of hopeful young actors auditioned for maybe 20 spots in the drama division. But the advanced program, that was different. That was for the absolute best. That year, Houseman accepted exactly 2 students into the advanced program. Out of hundreds of auditions, just 2. Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams. They were opposites in every possible way. Reeve was tall, 6'4", classically handsome, Ivy League educated at Cornell, disciplined, methodical, serious. He'd walk into rehearsal with his lines memorized, his blocking planned, his character analysis written in detailed notebooks. He was Houseman's dream student, professional, reliable, talented. Robin was short, manic, chaotic, raw energy barely contained in human form. He'd grown up alone in a California mansion, dropped out of community college, survived on ramen noodles and pure nervous energy. He couldn't afford lunch most days. He'd do 50 different voices in a single scene, improvise wildly, ignore stage directions completely. Houseman called Reeve Studley, a term of respect and admiration. He called Robin Little Fool Ferret Boy, a term of affection mixed with complete bewilderment. The first time they were paired for a scene, Reeve thought it would be a disaster. They were assigned a dramatic scene from Tennessee Williams. Reeve had prepared meticulously. Robin showed up having barely read it, improvised half his lines in different accents, and somehow made it work. Afterward, Reeve approached him in the hallway. That was really interesting. Do you want to grab lunch and talk about the scene? Robin looked embarrassed. Actually, I'm kind of broke today. Maybe tomorrow. Reeve looked at him. Really looked at him. This guy was brilliant, maybe the most talented person Reeve had ever met, and he couldn't afford a sandwich. Come on, my treat. I want to hear how you came up with that interpretation. That lunch lasted 3 hours. They talked about acting, about their families, about why they'd chosen this impossible profession. Reeve learned that Robin had spent his childhood alone in a mansion with only toy soldiers for friends. Robin learned that Reeve, despite his perfect appearance, was terrified of failure, of not living up to expectations, of being just another handsome face with no substance. They were opposites, but somehow they fit. They became roommates, scene partners, brothers. When Robin couldn't afford lunch, which was often, Reeve would share his food without making a big deal about it. He'd just order extra and slide half across the table. When Reeve got too serious, too locked in his own head, too paralyzed by perfectionism, Robin would do a voice, crack a joke, make him laugh until he loosened up. They balanced each other. Reeve was the anchor. Robin was the sail. Together, they were unstoppable. After Juilliard, their careers took wildly different paths. Reeve went to Broadway, won acclaim, then headed to Hollywood and became Superman in 1978. Suddenly he was famous, recognized everywhere, the symbol of hope and heroism for an entire generation. Robin went to San Francisco, performed stand-up comedy in tiny smoke-filled clubs, got discovered, became Mork in Mork and Mindy. Two different kinds of fame, two different worlds, but through all of it, through marriages and divorces and career highs and devastating lows, through Robin's cocaine addiction and recovery, through Reeve's struggles with being typecast, they never stopped calling each other every week. Without fail, sometimes just to talk about nothing, sometimes just to hear the other person's voice. Because that's what brothers do. They show up. They stay. And now, in that hospital room in 1995, Robin sat with Reeve and they talked. Really talked. Robin told stories about his kids, about the chaos of raising 3 children, about his latest film projects and the absurdity of Hollywood. He did voices, made jokes, kept things light, and slowly, carefully, Reeve started coming back to life. He started asking questions about Robin's life, about the outside world, about whether people were already forgetting about him, the man who used to be Superman. "Are they replacing me?" Reeve asked quietly. "Have they moved on already?" Robin shook his head. "Chris, the entire world is praying for you. You're on magazine covers. People are crying in movie theaters watching old Superman films. You're not forgotten. You could never be forgotten." Reeve stared at the ceiling. "I can't move, Robin. I can't feel anything. I'm going to be like this forever." "Maybe," Robin said honestly, "or maybe not. But here's what I know. You're still you. The accident broke your neck, not your mind, not your heart. You're still the same guy who helped me pay rent when I was broke. You're still the guy who believed in me when I was just a nobody doing stand-up in San Francisco dives. You're still Chris." And then Reeve asked the question. The one that changed everything. He looked at Robin, his eyes still wet from laughing at the proctologist bit, and whispered, "Do you think I can do this? Do you think I can actually live like this? Because I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm strong enough." Robin didn't hesitate. He leaned in close, grabbed Reeve's hand tighter, and said, "Chris, if you can laugh, you can breathe. And if you can breathe, you can live. And if you can live, you can do anything. You just laughed harder than you've laughed in years. That's not nothing. That's everything." Then Robin smiled, that sad, knowing smile. "Besides, you're Superman. You've saved the world, 4 times now? 5 if you count the director's cut. You can handle this. I know you can." Reeve stared at him, and something shifted. Not physically. Nothing moved. His body was still broken. His spine was still shattered. The ventilator still breathed for him. But something inside him, something that had been dying for 6 weeks, started to fight back. A spark. A tiny flame of hope. "Okay," Reeve whispered. "Okay, I'll try. I don't know how, but I'll try." Robin stayed for 3 hours that day. When he finally left, promising to call tomorrow and every day after, Reeve turned to Dana and said the words she'd been praying to hear for 6 weeks. "I want to live. I don't know how to do this, but I want to try." That night, for the first time since the accident, Christopher Reeve slept without nightmares. What happened next is the part most people know. Reeve didn't just survive, he fought. Brutal physical therapy, experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover, speeches from his wheelchair, activism that changed laws. He became a voice for spinal cord injury research, raising over $100 million for paralysis foundations. He directed films from his wheelchair. He wrote best-selling books. He appeared at the 1996 Academy Awards to a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Christopher Reeve, Paralyzed Superman, became a different kind of hero, a real one. But here's what most people don't know. Robin Williams paid for a significant portion of Reeve's medical bills, quietly, anonymously. The Reeve family didn't find out until years later when a hospital administrator accidentally mentioned it. When insurance companies fought coverage, when experimental treatments cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, Robin would call the hospital billing department directly and handle it. No press releases, no public announcements, no credit, Just a brother taking care of a brother, and every single week, without fail, Robin called. Sometimes at 2 a.m. because Robin never slept normally. Sometimes Reeve was too tired to talk, too depressed, too overwhelmed by pain and medication. Robin would call anyway. He'd do voices on the answering machine. He'd leave 10-minute messages as different characters. Russian doctors, Irish priests, Southern politicians, just talking nonsense until the tape ran out. Because he knew that on the days when Reeve felt most alone, most forgotten by the world, that message would remind him. Somebody sees you. Somebody remembers. Somebody loves you exactly as you are. Despite his paralysis, despite the ventilator, despite everything stacked against him, Reeve kept pushing forward. He returned to acting, starring in a 1998 remake of Rear Window. Directed from his wheelchair, and through all of it, Robin was there. Not publicly, not for credit, just there. In 2000, when Reeve's son Matthew graduated high school, Robin flew across the country to attend the ceremony. He sat in the back row, didn't make a scene, didn't draw attention. He was just there, smiling, proud. Because that's what brothers do. In 2004, Christopher Reeve died from heart failure at age 52. He'd lived 9 years longer than most doctors predicted. 9 years of advocacy, activism, love, and life that changed the world for millions of people with spinal cord injuries. And when Robin Williams spoke at Reeve's memorial service, he told the story about the Russian proctologist. The entire room, despite their grief, laughed through their tears. And Robin said something that nobody who was there has ever forgotten. Chris taught me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and choosing to move forward anyway. He showed me that even when your body is broken, your spirit doesn't have to be. He became Superman after the accident, not before. But the story doesn't end there. For 10 years after Reeve's death, Robin Williams quietly continued to support the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. He did benefit shows, made donations, kept his brother's mission alive. And when Robin's own demons started closing in, when his depression became unbearable, when Lewy body dementia began destroying his mind in 2014, friends say he would sometimes talk about Chris, about that day in the hospital, about how laughter had brought his brother back from the edge, about how he wished someone could do the same for him. In August 2014, Robin Williams took his own life. The world mourned the loss of a comedic genius. But Christopher Reeve's children mourned something else. They mourned the man who'd saved their father's life with a stupid joke and a Russian accent. The man who'd called every week for 9 years. The man who'd shown them that real friendship isn't about grand gestures or public displays. It's about showing up. It's about staying. It's about loving someone through their darkest moments and never, ever letting go. Today, there's a plaque at the Juilliard School. It's in room 304. The room where Reeve and Williams first met in 1973. It reads, "In memory of Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams, 2 students who became brothers, 2 actors who became heroes. They taught us that laughter can heal, friendship can save, and courage isn't the absence of fear. It's love in action." The Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation has funded over $300 million in spinal cord injury research since 1995. Thousands of people living with paralysis have received grants, support, and hope because of the work Reeve started after that day Robin walked into his hospital room. And every year at their fundraising gala, they show a clip. It's Robin Williams at a benefit in 2003 doing his Russian proctologist impression one more time. The room always laughs. And then someone in the audience always starts crying because they remember. They remember that sometimes the smallest act of love, a stupid joke, a fake accent, a friend showing up when you need them most, can change everything. If this story of friendship, courage, and the power of showing up moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that even in our darkest moments, we're not alone. Have you ever had a friend who saved you when you needed it most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible true stories about the bonds that define us, the love that sustains us, and the moments that prove we're all worth fighting for.